This is the third in a series of videos refuting the false doctrine of the SDA Church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I've done 2 such videos already. This is the third, and the title of this one is Daniel 7 verse 8 is about the Russian invasion and conquest of Western Europe. The Russian invasion and conquest of Western Europe, well, that makes this passage just about the most important passage in the whole Old Testament. For the Russian invasion of Europe, by implication, it also includes the Russian bombing of America, where we are the defender of Europe, we are the leader of NATO. So the Russian invasion of Europe, they would not do it without also launching a preemptive strike against the United States. So that makes this passage unbelievably important. Any Russian invasion of Western Europe would have to be accompanied by a Russian preemptive strike on the USA, the leader of NATO. Because this passage, Daniel 7 verse 8, is about this important subject. It deserves to be explained and presented clearly, and the SDA Church deserves to be condemned for the false doctrine that it teaches about this verse. It butchers the meaning of the Bible passage. This passage is super important to all Americans and to all Europeans. Now let me start at the beginning of chapter 7 of Daniel. God gives Daniel a vision in which there are 4 beasts, and the 4 beasts are 4 empires. Now what they all have in common is they all take turns. Each has a turn ruling over Israel. Babylon rules over Israel. Then Persia succeeds Babylon, conquers Babylon, and they rule over Israel. Then Greece rules over Israel. And then the Roman Empire. And fourthly, the 4th beast is the Roman Empire. It rules over Israel. Now, the Roman Empire, that's in verse 7. But in verse 8, the Roman Empire has fallen. And in its place, there are 10 nations that have formed, sovereign nations, formed out of the land area of the Roman Empire. Actually, about 30 nations formed out of the Roman Empire, but this passage concentrates on just 10. It's a subset. And then in verse 8, another horn, quote, another horn, unquote, comes up among the 10 horns and takes away their independence and their sovereignty. The end result is a return to the one-man rule that characterized the Roman Empire. Each Caesar ruled all of Western Europe, the mainland of Western Europe, and it was one-man rule. Now, this conqueror that I just mentioned, he'll restore one-man rule. So this is sort of the return of the Roman Empire, and that's how the book of Revelation, which is a commentary on Daniel 7, this is how the book of Revelation in chapter 17 describes what happens in Daniel 7 verse 8. It says, the beast you saw that was and is not will come again. In other words, the Roman Empire comes a second time. Now this Russian invasion and conquest of Western Europe has not happened yet. And this conquest will be accompanied by the devastation of 3 nations in Western Europe. The other nations surrender without having to be devastated. Now the SDA Church, the Seventh-day Adventists, claim this action has already happened way back in like the 6th century, the 500s. They say there were 3 kings, 3 nations, and the emperor of Rome, the Roman emperor, defeated these 3 nations. And it completely misinterprets the whole action in Daniel 7 verse 8. Verse 8 is about Russian invasion, has nothing to do with the plot, according to the plot that the SDA Church assigns to this passage. They have completely butchered this Bible passage, and they deserve to be exposed and condemned for their false doctrine. Now I have to go back over verse 8 and explain why the 10 nations, the existence of these 10 kings and the 10 nations they rule automatically means the Roman Empire is no longer in existence, because when it was in existence, these 10 nations were provinces. They weren't independent, and they did not have kings. So the fact that they have kings in verse 8 means the empire is gone. Now Revelation, the book of Revelation, is largely a commentary on Daniel 7, the 4th beast, the Roman Empire and the return of the Roman Empire. In Revelation 17, verse 8 and verse 11, it says, the beast that was, is not, and will come again. And now in chapter 12 of Revelation, it's talking about the Roman Empire in the 1st century, and we see there that the 7 hills of Rome have crowns. That means Rome is the headquarters of the Roman Empire. And then in the next chapter, Revelation 13, it says the 10 horns have crowns. The crowns have shifted from the 7 hills of Rome to the 10 horns, which are the provinces. Now there's a tremendous change in time. Revelation 12 goes with Daniel 7, verse 7, and Revelation 13 goes with Daniel 7, verse 8. And then in verse 7 of Revelation 13, it describes the war by which Russia conquers Europe, and by implication also bombs America. And that's not stated. But Russia would never invade and conquer Europe without first launching a preemptive strike against the defender of Europe. And so, long story short, Revelation 13:7 equals Daniel 7, verse 8. It's talking about the same invasion. When will the Russian invasion of Europe take place and the bombing of America's cities? Well, because Russia recently got into our computers, our government computers. It wasn't recent, it was a year ago. This is March 2021. According to the experts, the Russian hacking began last March. So it's been a full year. And the damage they're doing is unspeakably, tragic. And the most important thing from their point of view is to disable our nuclear triad, which is our retaliatory arsenal. In other words, when they bomb us, we're supposed to retaliate. Well, we won't be able to retaliate because they've disabled our computers. So it'll be a one-sided war. And so the deadly wound that's supposed to, that's described in Revelation 13, verse 3 and 4, it won't be deadly. Nuclear war is supposed to be deadly to both sides. That's called the doctrine of MAD, Mutual Assured Destruction, MAD. Now, it won't be mutual. And so Russia, you got to give Russia credit. Give credit where credit is due. Give the devil his due. Russia has done, what's supposed to be impossible. But God hates sin. And America has sinned. The Western world, the Christian world, has, we've gone, we're into apostasy right now, especially Europe. And a lot of Christian churches in Europe have gone bankrupt. The people don't attend. They don't contribute money. The buildings have been sold to Muslims, and they've turned Christian churches into mosques. Now, this is an abomination of desolation. Just like in Jerusalem, the Muslims took the temple site and of the Jewish temple of God, and they turned it into a Muslim shrine. And then beside that, they built a mosque. What is the name of that? Sharif. Anyway, it's an abomination of desolation. What I mean by that is when an Antichrist figure desecrated the temple, it was called an abomination of desolation. And when Christian churches become mosques, this is a defiling of holy sites. But getting back to what I was saying, because of abortion, because of gay marriage, because of drugs, proliferation, because of pornography on the internet, our forefathers would never allow their children to access pornography. Yet this generation of adults, they don't break a sweat over what's going on. So we really are in for punishment from God. I should also add that when Daniel 7 verse 8 comes true, maybe this year because of the hacking of our computers, maybe this gives Russia what they want. And whenever it comes true, whenever Revelation 13:7 comes true, this will be the time of the rapture. The Christians that get killed in America, the Christians that get killed in 3 countries in Western Europe, when Russia, devastates those countries to make an example out of them, the Christians will be raptured. And they won't leave bodies that sleep in the dirt, in the dust. Their bodies will be vaporized. So that will fulfill Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 15, where it says, we will not all sleep. He does not mean we will not die. But we will not leave sleeping corpses that sleep, metaphorically speaking. See, there's 2 meanings to the word sleep as far as in connection to death. There is the act of going to sleep, the act of dying. And then there's the state of being asleep, of being dead. And when Paul says we will not all sleep, he means we will not leave corpses that portray the state of being asleep. The action of sleeping, we do actually go through that. The people that get raptured, they do actually die. And but it won't seem like death to them, because in 1 second they'll have a physical body, and then the bombs will vaporize their bodies instantly, in a twinkling of an eye, and so they'll find themselves with a spiritual body. So they'll go from physical to spiritual, and they won't even think that they died. Oh, and the last thing I want to say, very important, 5 months is the length of the tribulation. And that's in Revelation 9, verse 5 and 10. Look up my videos about 5 months. I can't tell you the month that I made the videos. I'm sorry, I should have done that. Maybe next time I'll have that information. All right, this is all for now. I'll make a transcript in the description box under the video, so you can make a paper copy.